And just a reminder that on Tuesdays, office hours at 10 a.m. Eastern, we'll be having Simona Pop from the Bounties Network come and talk about how the Bounties Network is building a bounties system on Ethereum and kind of their goals behind it. And hopefully we'll get into some of the technical stuff as well. So just a plug for that. And if you guys have any questions, we can just jump right in. How far along in the course are you guys? Have you guys finished up with the content? Are you working on final projects, or what's your status?
Hey Josh, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Hey, is it too loud? I'm in a coffee shop and there's like music in the background. I don't know if you can hear that or not.
We can hear it, but I mean your voice is just way louder, so it's fine.
Okay. I'm trying to start my video, but I guess I can't. Yeah, I finished all the content. I'm just working on the final project, and I'm like, dang, it's like 2 weeks left. I gotta start knocking some of this stuff out. So, so I had like a specific question on like the project. So I don't know if you remember, but it's kind of like, I guess, a token generator for artists, and then like they can crowdfund their projects. So I guess I'm trying to like write the crowd sale contract, which is essentially I'm importing the Open Zeppelin crowd sale contract, but I'm having some trouble like testing it because to test it, I guess I would need like 2 different users with ETH to put into the contract and buy tokens and be able to check the value of to be able to check the value of the tokens they're buying, and then like that they send the right amount of ETH. So I guess I'm trying to like understand that a little more.
Yeah. So yeah, specifically around testing your contract and how you write the tests around like the factory.
Right. Well, not so much the factory, but like the crowd sale piece. So like the factory, creates the token, and that's fine. I already wrote tests for that, and it's that next piece where it's like, okay, well, now put this token in the crowd sale contract and buy tokens. It says send ETH, receive tokens. It's that piece that I'm trying to like test.
Okay. Do you want to share your screen and we can actually look at your project and talk specifics?
Yeah.
It might be helpful.
Okay.
Hi, Yako.
Okay.
Hi, John. Hi, Amal.
Can y'all see the screen?
Hello.
Yeah. So just to give you all some context on what we're doing, Richard, we're looking at Richard's project. Richard, I don't know if you want to give a quick overview of your project, but we're going to look at how he's going to test some of his contracts when he has like a token factory, and then testing the contracts that are deployed from the token factory. So that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
I don't know, Richard, if you want to give an overview of like
Yeah,
what the project is and kind of like, yeah.
yeah. My project idea was kind of just like a place where a musician can essentially crowdfund, maybe like a song or album they want to get, recorded. They want to get some cash to go hit the studio. So the idea was like the artist can get on here and essentially just raise money for for recording or whatever it might be, whatever project they might be working on. And the way I decided to implement that was the artist is actually a token. So when you create the artist's account, you know, it creates a token specific to that artist. And whenever the artist creates a project, it's essentially a crowd sale. So you pass that artist token into this crowd sale contract, and then people can buy, Snoop Dogg tokens or whatever it might be, and essentially use those tokens to buy something from Snoop Dogg's like merch store, or more specifically, my idea was to like share royalties, song royalties. So, but that's like, I'm not even to that part yet. So right now I'm just trying to understand like the crowd sale portion of it. So I've got the create artist, which is essentially a token. I've got that functionality already, and now I'm trying to pass that to a crowd sale contract and test to make sure that you can buy and all the values will be transferred correctly. And I'm just trying to understand that a little more. So that was the question I had for Josh.
Yeah. Since we have had like 5 more people join since we jumped into this, I'm just going to take a temperature of the room and see if we have any more general questions first.
Yeah. Sure.
And then maybe we can dive into this if people want to dig into testing a little bit more. But,
sure.
Yeah, we can table this. If we don't get to it today, we'll be in touch and we can schedule something for tomorrow or soon.
Okay.
But yeah, how's everyone feeling with the course? Now that we have like just under 2 weeks until final projects are due, how far are you guys? And yeah, what questions do you have for me or for the group?
Yeah, am I being heard? I'm wondering if my mic is going. All right, cool. I was wondering, I think I've asked you about this earlier, but just to confirm, I had a project that I've been working on before, but I've made like significant progress throughout the course, and I've implemented a lot of what we do throughout the course. There's IPFS, there's upgradable contracts and all of that, and a lot of it was done throughout the course, so I'm wondering if I can submit that.
Yep. Yeah, if you started something before the course, that's totally fine. Just as long as it's something that you created, and it's not something taking somebody else. That's totally fine.
All right, great. Yeah, thanks.
Yep, and make sure you're just go back over the requirements for the project and make sure you're checking as many boxes as you can. So.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Yep. Does anybody else have any questions specifically, or we might just jump back into Richard's contract if that's okay with you guys, just looking at testing and how that's going to work in Richard's specific case.
Yeah, that's fine.
I had a question in the chat. Have we ever talked about ZepKit? I'm not familiar with ZepKit. I don't know if anybody else has used it. Santiago, maybe you want to talk a bit more about what it is. Is it related to Open Zeppelin? I'm not familiar with ZepKit specifically. Okay, it's like truffle boxes. Yeah, I'm not familiar, so Can't really speak to that. Okay, nice. It allows upgradability. That's a cool feature. I'll have to check it out. All right, Richard. Well, I guess we can jump into your contract testing if you want to do that. I think it might be a good exercise for all of us to go through.
Yeah, sure. Okay, let me go back to sharing my screen. So, y'all see everything? Yeah.
Yep. You can see your desktop. Yep. And there's GitHub.
Yeah, so I'm like, this is like the crowdsale contract that I'm using from Zeppelin. So I was just kind of trying to, I guess, understand it a little bit more and how it works and how value gets added to the token. So like when you create a token, it makes that address, like it occupies that address and there's no value in it yet, right? Like when you first initialize like, new token, so like in the artist factory here, when you create a new artist, which is a token,
Yep.
there's no value in it yet, right? Like this is just going to give me the address and so in my artist test here, so these are some tests I wrote for the artist, which that has.
Yeah, so when you create a new contract, like in this case, a new artist contract, the initial balance of that contract is going to be 0.
Right.
Until you send any value to it. So we'll have no ether associated with the contract.
Right.
Transaction to it with a message.value, then the contract balance will have whatever balance you send it.
Wait. Can you say that last part again? I'm sorry, I missed it.
So yeah, if you create a new artist contract, it's gonna have a balance of 0. But then if you do a transfer or send a transaction with value to that contract, the artist contract balance will contain whatever value.
Okay.
It will just increment for every time new value gets sent along.
I see. Okay. So, yeah, when testing the artist contract, I get the owner and I check the balance that the owner has, and it's 0, and the total supply is 0, which is to be expected, I guess. And then so, the project, which is the crowd sale, I think I have it down. Sorry. So all it asks for, I guess, is the rate of the token, and it's a capped crowd sale, so like only raise this much money. So it asks for the cap and the name. That's just specific to my project specifically. I believe it's just rate, the address of the sender, and the actual token. That's all the crowd sale contract asks for. So when you create a project, it passes those to the crowd sale contract, and it passes the cap to the capped crowd sale contract. So I guess I'm trying to test this and add value to the artist token, the token. So like I want the token to have value. So the crowd sale is supposed to, when somebody buys tokens, which is what I was looking at here. When somebody buys tokens, is this where the actual token gets value? Because you're sending ETH to the crowd sale contract, and it's buying tokens.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
essentially you're just like selling tokens for ETH, right? So the value of the token is just going to be whatever the exchange rate is of the ETH to token, right? Is that right?
whatever we use in the token. Yeah, correct.
So just looking at, I haven't looked at the Open Zeppelin crowd sale contract before, but looks like it's calling these other contracts like, or these other functions called like process purchase and update purchasing state. So it'd be interesting to look at what those.
So that one's down here, I believe. Process purchase, so deliver tokens. Yeah, so it performs a safe transfer as performing the token purchase and the number of tokens to be emitted.
Does this crowd sale contract require that the tokens are like ERC20 tokens?
Yes. So let me show you the. Yeah.
Are your tokens ERC20 tokens?
Yes.
Okay. So you're just essentially implementing this crowd sale contract again? You're just using all the same functions?
I mean, it just extends these.
Okay.
So I'm just like pulling in all this functionality. You know, I make this instance of a crowd sale. You know, my tokens, like my artist tokens in here. The wallet that will collect the funds is in there, and the rate at which they're being sold. I guess I'm trying to understand like how to actually use it. You know, like is the buy tokens like the next step to that? I create this crowd sale. I have somebody buy tokens, and then the tokens get value, and the buyer gets his you know, Kanye West tokens.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like I was trying to write tests to help me understand how to implement that and what's going on, but I'm like, you know, in my JavaScript tests, and I'm like, okay, well, how do I have two different users with two different with two different wallet addresses, each having value, and see ETH being transferred and Snoop Dogg tokens being transferred.
Okay. So yeah, in your you're talking about in your test file, right?
Yeah.
So in truffle tests, you actually can access a bunch of accounts that are pre-funded. So you can have. Let me pull it up real quick.
Oh! When you start up the development console.
Yeah, like when you run truffle test, it's going to spin up like a Ganache chain just for testing.
Right.
And you have access to all of the accounts with Ether.
Okay. So just grab a couple of those.
I'm going to send you a link. I'm going to post a link in the chat real quick.
Okay.
You can access the chat, right? You know where that is when you're sharing your screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Click on that link and it'll pop up and it'll show you the truffle docs on writing tests with your script.
I don't know where it's at on this one.
Are you not seeing it?
Yeah, here it is. Okay.
So at the top, actually, it's in the section called, on the first code section, there's an example of it. You just scroll down to the first block of code. Like right there, it shows you, it says contract metacoin, comma accounts, and then it's the async function, and then in that function block, you'll be able to access all of the accounts. So you could say like in the function block, you can say like let account 1 equal accounts, and then accounts is an array, and then so accounts index 0 would be account 1, and then you can say account 2 equals accounts index 1.
Okay. And this contract function just knows to accept accounts, and it knows it's going to put the values there for you.
Yep. So each one of those accounts is pre-funded with Ether, so you can just start sending transactions from those accounts. And then you can also send Ether to the contract from those accounts. So like in line 7, right below the instance, you could say let account 1 equal accounts index 0. Yep. And then,
and so now this is a wallet address with Ether.
yep. And that's just managed by Truffle in the Truffle test. So then like in your transaction object, when you're sending a transaction from like to a contract, you can just specify in the transaction object like from account 0 or from account 1. And that account is the Ethereum address. So also like if you need to look up something in the contract, you can pass like account 1 to the function to get any like token balances from that account or get any information. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think that's what I needed. Yeah, because now I can actually test like, okay, well, this wallet created the project, and this other wallet is buying some tokens.
Yep.
Let's make sure that the value changes.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
And I think you have access to like 10 accounts, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean that's usually. Yeah. I think the most I've ever used is like 3 accounts in tests.
Yeah. Okay.
So that should be sufficient.
Awesome. Yeah, that helps.
Cool. Yeah, and this highlights one of the benefits of JavaScript testing over Solidity testing. Managing accounts like this in Solidity tests is much more complicated. You have to like deploy proxy contracts and then fund your proxy contracts with Ether to send transactions from them in like a Solidity testing environment. So it's much easier to manage in the JavaScript environment, but writing Solidity tests like this is helpful just as an exercise to understand like how the contracts are interacting and how the EVM is processing value transfers and contract deployments and account abstractions and stuff in like a testing environment. So it helps you understand Solidity on a deeper level, but definitely much easier to manage in the JavaScript testing.
Quick question. The requirement for the final project in regards to testing refers to the JavaScript testing, right? Not the Solidity testing.
Sorry, Richard, can you mute real quick? It's hard to understand, John.
Oh yeah, sorry. Here, let me stop sharing as well.
So it's just a question about the testing requirements for the final project. It refers to the JavaScript testing, right? Not the Solidity testing?
Yeah.
Okay.
For the final project requirement, you can do either one or both if you want.
Okay.
By and large, I see JavaScript testing is much more common for people. I think it's easier to understand and easier to do, and it's just more common generally.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
I have one question, Josh, about the tokens I use. My project is an online market.
Okay.
And when I'm using, it's about what tokens, what ERC20 tokens should I use? Should I create my own token or use someone that already in the testnet?
What I recommend for the first pass on creating your project is keeping it as simple as possible. I think adding an ERC20 token to the marketplace just adds complexity that you don't need at first. I think working with ERC20 tokens is a valuable exercise just to gain experience so you understand how the tokens work. And when you look at other systems that use them, you understand what they're doing a bit better. But for the first pass through the marketplace, I would just use Ether as your currency. So you're just using message.value, and like when you're building transactions, you just fill in the value field in the transactions object, and that just keeps it as simple as possible.
Okay.
Probably not what you would do if you built a real production marketplace, but for the purposes of the project, you're just demonstrating the skills that we've covered in the course. So I think, yeah, using Ether at first, and then if you build out your project and you have extra time, I think it would be a great exercise to dive deeper into tokens and thinking about how your marketplace can use those.
Okay. Great. That's all for me.
I see there's a question in the chat. Why is there a fixed deadline in the course as opposed to other platforms that have learn at your own pace? So we have a fixed deadline in the course because of the way that we are reviewing projects, or the way that project reviews are set up in the course. So we have a peer review process, and we do that because I think it's a valuable exercise to look at other students' project implementations and learn from them and critique them. And to do that effectively, we really need to move through the course together. So we really need like a final deadline where everybody's submitting the project at the same time. Another rationale behind that is having a deadline for the project kind of paces out the rest of the course. So it's kind of like it provides motivation to keep going through the course and kind of sticking together with your cohort, just to provide that bit of external motivation to keep going, because it can be hard to learn in an entirely online environment when you're not showing up to a physical classroom and have like physical assignments to turn in. So that being said, if you don't submit your final project on the 31st, it just means you're not going to get a certificate at the end of the course. You'll still have access to the course until May of next year, so you can continue going through the course at your own pace. And whether you turn in a project or not, everybody has access to the course for the next year. Yeah, so you can keep referencing the course material. And we're going to keep the Slack chat open so you guys can continue to communicate with your peers there.
Is there going to be a separate Slack, I guess, channel for like alums to like collaborate?
We don't currently have one. We're experimenting with that on our team and seeing what that would look like. And I think you guys are best positioned to take advantage of that going forward, because we used a different platform in the past that we actually had to shut down after the program finished up. So just being able to keep this one active even after the cohort ends will be really valuable. But yeah, right now we don't have an alumni shared channel. The alumni messaging that we continue with are like when we have ConsenSys folks come and do webinars with Academy, like in the past when we had RhombusCom and AlethioCom, we send out invitations to all the bootcamp alumni to join those sessions.
Gotcha. Okay.
See, there's another question about seeing how an open Zeppelin contract is inherited in your own contract. Does anybody here have an example of that they may be working on in their project or that they've seen that they want to share?
I could show mine, Josh. It's really not much.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So this is my artist contract here, and all I'm doing is importing these two contracts from Open Zeppelin. ERC20 and then detailed is just it's just an extension of the ERC20. You know, the artist contract is an ERC20 details, and then the only other thing I added was the constructor call. So when you make an instance of artist, you just pass the values that the ERC20 detailed contract is looking for, so it can fire its constructor, and then that's it. That's really all you have to do. And then if you go to the
And Richard, to get those contracts in your project, did you just npm install Open Zeppelin or?
Yeah, exactly. I have them with an absolute path just because I didn't want to have like another node modules folder on the top level, so I just put it with all the modules I was using for the React side of everything for the client. And let me just pull this up.
Yeah, so if you run npm install Open Zeppelin, it adds all of these contracts to your node modules folder, right?
Right.
So then, yeah, you can reference those through the relative path in your Solidity file that you're writing yourself.
Exactly. So then when you say it'll inherit all this functionality that is already defined for you. So like the transfer from, I think it's just a safer way than implementing it yourself. But yeah, that's pretty much all I did. And then my artist contract is longer just because I'm adding functionality to the artist entity. So it's going to control its own merge store and stuff. So that's why mine looks so long. Otherwise, it would be just like this really short. It would just be the constructor.
Yeah, so yours is essentially an ERC20 token with additional functions that you're tagging onto it, right?
Yes, exactly.
Nice. Eduardo, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, about the include of the library of Zeppelin. The library is already compiled in the network. It's not preferable to use to call the library from the network origin than compile with our library, because it will cost more gas to us. I'm thinking about it in a production environment.
I think about it in an ERC20 specific context.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so what I heard your question is, would it be better to like call an ERC20 library instead of inheriting the ERC20 contract? Is that right?
Yeah, is that right?
So yeah, I don't think ERC20 tokens can actually be calling a library because each contract is essentially it has to be its own token contract.
Oh, okay. I got it. With that,
This is a really interesting question.
Yeah, I'm thinking if it would make sense for an ERC20 token to call a library.
Well, the way the contracts, we're using inheritance to bring those ERC contracts. They're a base class, and that means the Solidity compiler will create when it's compiling the bytecode, it'll use the interface or the base class to build your final contract. There could be a library out there. I don't know if there's one, but then you would have to utilize a delegate call. It would be possible, but I don't think it's available.
Yeah,
but this would be a problem you'd want to solve if it really was punishing you the gas cost. I would recommend not not doing that for the final project, but when someone, when you're out in the the wild making smart contracts for after this course, that's something you'd want to investigate further. It's not an easy topic to reason about, and it's going to change because, well, it's going to be volatile because it's gas, and the way the EVM estimates gas and all those things, it's not easy to nail down. It's a difficult problem.
Yeah.
But it would be possible. I just don't know if there is one out there.
Yeah. I think that you have to research more about what is more costly, if make the delegate call or if including your code.
Right.
You have to make a wise decision there.
Yes, but if you're using the test network and you're not going on mainnet, I would defer that investigation and focus on the other aspects of the final project.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that is an interesting question, and it's something to explore maybe after the project, but you could definitely write tests around it on testnet and C, which is more expensive because I think it is quite expensive for the delegate call. So it really depends on how many token contracts you're expecting to deploy versus how often the token contracts functions are actually delegating to the library. So I think it depends on how much you're expecting like new contracts versus these library calls. And that ratio will actually matter.
Okay.
And Eduardo, this is a very interesting and a hot topic, and I do recommend that you do research it because we need more research and education, documentation in this particular space.
Okay.
This could be a really interesting topic if you do explore this and you do some testing around it. If you wrote up a blog post and published it, I think there would be a lot of people that would find it interesting. So.
Okay.
I certainly would. I know the Ganache folks would as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. To make how about the strategy to make the contracts upgradable? What is the better way to approach to that?
This is another interesting question. Upgradable contracts are a topic unto themselves as well. There are a bunch of patterns out there, like separating data from function and versioning, creating ABI versions. Versioned ABIs. And also there's a cost to that. Do you want to do that in a way that there is a cost to making that extra call all the time to access your data for every function call? So that's a scaling decision. there's some really good articles out on the topic, and there's a recent project called Homework that I would look at on GitHub. The number 0 AGE, his GitHub repository. There is a homework project that's in that space as well. Actually, I'm wrong. That looks at the problem in a different way, where it optimizes an address for deployment. So it cuts the cost of deploying based on shaping a contract address.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks, Amal.
Oh, I will put sorry. Elena from Colony had written a very interesting article on upgradable contracts. I'm sure you guys have seen it. If not, I posted a link.
Mhm. I'm looking at it.
There was a question a bit earlier about what kinds of use cases do you think are the best to tackle as a final project in order to get under the radar of ConsenSys or other Ethereum-based organizations looking for candidates? I think developing a final project that would be like flagged as interesting for ConsenSys or other Ethereum organizations might be a little bit too complex for this final project. That's not to say you can't attempt it. I just think it would be a better use of time to build something that you really understand and you could use as like a template for talking about, like if you get into a job interview and they ask you about your Ethereum development skills, you can use your final project as a talking point in an interview and explain exactly what you did in your final project, how you wrote your contract, how you wrote your tests, how you thought about the system that you built, just to really demonstrate the knowledge that you've acquired in the course. So I think thinking about the final project through that lens might be more fruitful in the long run. Thinking about your project as like something, yeah, you can talk to show skills. Just something that I know has been a hot topic over the past few months in the Ethereum space generally has been the decentralized finance tools. That's just a personal opinion that, like, if you build a DeFi application, you might be able to, depending on what that looks like, people might be interested in that. I don't know if anybody else has any ideas in terms of like what's a hot topic in Ethereum right now. I know thinking about transactions in ways that make user experiences better is another topic of research. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the burner wallet or the concept of meta transactions, where users don't have to pay for gas themselves, but other accounts can pay gas for like first-time users, just to take out that initial barrier for interacting with the Ethereum network. That's just some things that come to mind for areas of current research. But again, I think doing that type of research and building a project in those domains might be a bit complex to tackle for a final project.
Yes, actually I was very worried about it.
Sorry?
I was very worried about the upgradable contracts.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
That's why I was worried about my contract to be upgradable.
Available?
No, upgradable.
Upgradable.
Oh.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I have another perspective that can maybe inform you guys. I have a confession. I did not finish my final project. What I did, and there are many reasons. The most is I procrastinated a long time. And I waited to the last minute to get started. Well, not really, but I waited too long. But what I did in that period of time was I was able to learn so much about the environment and the framework. I hit all the hurdles, banged my head, cried, oh my God, it's not deploying. I spent like 3 weeks debugging something, and it really helped me understand the language. So, understand the ecosystem. I'm not encouraging you not to finish your project, but what I am encouraging you to do is make sure you're learning something and you have a journal with you to say, this is the problem I solved today. This is the problem I have to solve. This is what I don't understand. And those things are very valuable because they come from a perspective of application and failure. And failure is not necessarily a bad thing. Failure can be very insightful. And to be able to talk about failure and lessons you've learned is an important skill. I think ConsenSys Academy is an incredible course that gives you the opportunity to fail and learn. That's how I look at it. And as someone, for someone that's interviewed, I've interviewed a few people for jobs in smart contract development or blockchain development. And I look for the failures that you've had. If you come to me and I had this one successful project, I'll be terrified to hire you. I want to know how you failed, what lessons you've learned, how you think about the space, the things that Josh was mentioning about. Well, the things that Josh mentioned about is just bad phrase.
Guys, can I jump on a tangent real quick here because I have to go? If you'll allow me. I just want to share something that we've been doing for the 3rd year now. This is me and my organization. We're completely nonprofit for blockchain education here in Brazil. And we're running for the 3rd year a campaign to raise funds to help the homeless. So we buy blankets for the homeless. And this year we're also going to buy food. And we've just done our first delivery of 120 blankets 2 days ago. And the campaign is still going. And we're committed to topping up donations up to a specified cap. We're going to double every donation. And we're receiving donations in crypto. Ether is one of the currencies that we accept. So I'm going to leave a link. So everything is very transparent, and we make sure we disclose every single aspect of the campaign. So if there's interest from anyone to share or to donate, that would help us and of course the homeless people a lot. So that means a lot to us. And if anybody's interested, I'll leave the link here. We're actually first hot post on our Ethereum today, so you can also find us on Reddit there. People have been talking about this campaign a little bit today on there. So yeah, thanks for that.
Jaco, could you email me with some more information? I'd like to talk to you about this to know more about how you develop this tool, and if I run it by my team, there's a possibility we could help promote it as well.
Yeah, just leave your email, I guess, on the chat or in private to me. and I'll be happy to tell you about it. I will let you know that it's not a tool at the moment, so it's just simply like donations to an address. A tool is something that we are considering doing in the future, but as of now, we just have the addresses, and what we do is, people can verify, for example, on Ethers can, that the amount donated was this much, and they can match that with the receipts that we have for the blankets. And we, of course, document the whole process. So we have pictures of the delivery, we have pictures of the blankets and everything that we show. And then we always put out a transparency report. So I can send the transparency report from last year to you as well.
That's awesome. Well, what I was looking for in terms of tools was the development tools you use to build. If you use Truffle, I'm really excited. If you used any of the Truffle tools, I would love to talk to you even further. Either way.
So I didn't use Truffle for this project, but I use Truffle for every other project that I have. Because
right,
like I said,
forget it. Sorry, I'm like, no. I'm just kidding. No, of course. Let's connect. I put my email in the chat.
All right, sounds great. I'll email you about it. Yep.
Cool.
Cheers, guys. Have a good one.
Take care.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to what Amal was saying about failure and banging your head against your keyboard and frustration and just the learning process, as I guess. I don't know all of your experience level with coding or your background or how long you've been doing it, but I learned web development fairly recently in the past 3 years, and this was like my experience of learning to code. It's like the frustration is when I'm learning, so you just kind of have to like be comfortable with it. And like I've been helping students with some debug sessions and like getting through not just debugging code but debugging process, because there's so many moving parts in blockchain development, like setting up a development chain, creating your contracts, deployment scripts, all of these things, connecting to MetaMask and having your React project work if you're using React. All these things need to be like coordinated effectively, and like a breakdown in one step can cause your testing to fail, let alone just like having a bug in your code somewhere. So like you have to debug process as much as debug your code. But yeah, frustration is really where you learn. So like, I guess my advice is just to not get disheartened when that frustration happens, and just really, like Amal said, take note of what you are learning, because you are making progress every time you get through or you clear a bug and you get to the next step. Like you finally debug something and then you try and run your project and it just fails again for a new reason. That's progress. Like you made a step in the right direction at that point. So just keeping that in mind. It can be hard, I know. And developing in a blockchain ecosystem is harder than most, just because a lot of the tools are less developed than the rest of the web development environment. So just a plug there.
Yeah, and just one more bit on this topic. I've been a developer for a long time, and it's so important to keep a journal, because you're going to be learning so many different topics, and you will context switch to do different things. Having the notes as a reminder to get you back into that space of what you were doing and what you did, it's very important. It's a good habit that I recommend you start. I can't overstate how important that is. And it's an easy thing to do. You basically, you get to bypass the hard button most of the time with that journal. I mean, invoke the easy button.
I see another comment by Santiago in the chat, looking to tackle more novel ideas instead of building something that was already built by somebody else, in reference to like what I said about meta transactions in the burner wallet. Building new dapp ideas, really. I don't know if you guys are familiar with like any Ethereum research forums. One that comes to mind is ETH Research. I don't know how much they talk about developing new ideas at the application layer. I know they have a section about applications specifically. I'll share the link to the site in the chat. But there are people discussing ideas about things that need to be built in the Ethereum ecosystem that haven't been built yet. And if they haven't been built yet, it's probably because they're hard to build. Or there needs to be more research about how to do them well. So I guess if you're looking for more novel application ideas or just research ideas, peruse some of these forums and see what people are talking about and what's really garnering interest among developers. Another idea is helping people that already have projects. I'm thinking specifically about going to sites like Gitcoin, where companies or just groups will post bounties for GitHub issues or new features they want to see in their application. That can be a cool way to get involved in some new development projects. But that would be more along the lines of like helping an existing project as opposed to building something new yourself. I don't know if you guys have checked those sites out before, but I recommend them. Oh yeah, and that reminds me, Gitcoin is actually having a virtual hackathon that starts like the 29th. And I think it runs for like a month or 6 weeks or something. That can be a cool way to meet other people in the Ethereum space. They have like a Discord channel where you can meet other people that want to do the hackathon as well. They have companies and projects in the Ethereum space that are posting bounties for like projects that they want to see built. So that's a good way to see what people are really looking for, because they're throwing money at these bounties. So if you see one you like, you can build an application around whatever the bounty specification is, and you could potentially get a payout at the end of the hackathon. And it's a good way to get visibility too if you're looking to move into the space professionally, because there are projects there that are looking for developers. Yeah. I'm going to share the Gitcoin link there.
You know what the hackathon's called? I'm having trouble finding it on Google, besides the one that happened in April.
I posted it. It's called Grow Ethereum, I think.
Okay, thanks.
I'll post the link to it. Oh, it's a 2-week hackathon, so it's pretty short, just over 2 weeks. It's from July 29th to August 15th, which is pretty cool because I joined one of the hackathons in the spring, and it was a longer one. And I think engagement was just kind of like people were less engaged because it was over such a long time frame. So it might be interesting to check this one out where it's a shorter time span, so people might be more like motivated to work on their applications on a regular basis over the couple weeks. But yeah, that's a good way to get connected with people in Gitcoin, other devs in the community, and build something new that people really want to see. Cool. We're almost at the top of the hour. Does anybody have any last-minute questions before we sign off?
You gonna do any TruffleCon, Josh?
I will not be at TruffleCon. Amal, will you be at TruffleCon?
No, I have some personal commitments to take care of. But who is going to TruffleCon?
I got a ticket, so I'll be out there.
Nice, Richard.
I'm thinking of doing the Truffle U course after this one, so
Uh-huh.
it should be cool to go out there and just soak up some information, meet some people.
Oh, nice. Yeah, definitely. I think some of the Truffle University students are going to be there, which would be great.
Cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Should be good.
Nice.
By the way, you did know there is a subsidized ticket. If you didn't know, and if you paid more than $99, you're eligible for a refund to get it down to $99.
Oh, that's cool. No, I bought it after they dropped the prices. I think that's what pushed it over the edge. Like, for that price, I gotta go.
That's awesome, man. I wish I could have been there. Be awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, when you get there, tell them how cool ConsenSys Academy is too.
Yeah,
tell them I said so.
Definitely.
All right, cool. Thanks for joining, guys, and I'll post the recording in the Office Hours channel when I get it. So talk to you guys later.